Imagine going to work in the morning and not coming home as a person, but as a medical impossibility. This isn't a horror movie, not a shock documentary, not anime excess. This is Japan, 1999. Tokai Mura. And this is not the story of one careless worker. It's the story of systems that treat human beings like disposable components. Inside an industry that absolutely should know what happens when safety rules are ignored. Hisashi Ouchi was 35 years old, married, an ordinary nuclear technician. On September 30th, his day began like any other. 83 days later, he was dead. At the time, Japan had an energy problem. Few natural resources, massive demand, political pressure. Nuclear power was the solution, and somewhere along the line, safety first was replaced with faster, please. The Tokamura facility, operated by JCO, was part of that push. On paper, the process was strict and precise. Automated mixing, buffer tanks, carefully controlled concentrations, everything designed to prevent one thing above all else: accidental criticality. In simple terms, an uncontrolled nuclear chain reaction. The kind of thing you really don't want happening next to your body. 3 years before the accident, JCO decided those rules were inconvenient. Regulatory approval took time. Automated systems slowed production, so they changed the procedure without permission. Instead of machines, workers mixed enriched uranium powder by hand in stainless steel buckets. Yes, buckets. On the morning of the accident, Aochi and his colleague Masato Shinohara were doing exactly that, wearing casual work clothes, no protective gear, under intense pressure to catch up on delayed fuel rod production. Their supervisor, Yutaka Yokokawa, watched from an office desk. Management, at a safe distance from consequences. At around 10:35 a.m., Uchi poured the uranium solution into the precipitation tank. The legal concentration limit was exceeded by 7 times. 7. This wasn't a minor oversight. Suddenly, a bright blue flash filled the room. Cherenkov radiation, a visible confirmation that a nuclear chain reaction had begun. Gamma alarms screamed. Massive energy was released. In seconds, lethal radiation flooded the area. The men ran, or tried to. Aochi had absorbed an estimated 17,000 millisieverts of radiation, a dose so extreme it effectively erased his body's ability to repair itself. What followed would later be described as a fight for survival. When Hisashi Uchi arrived at the hospital that evening, he was conscious, he was talking, he was even in good spirits. Nurses noted swelling in his arm and skin that looked like a bad sunburn, but many assumed he'd recover and go home soon. Radiation sickness, after all, often lies. This phase is sometimes called the walking ghost stage, when the body looks functional, but the damage has already been written into every cell. Aochi himself asked if he could leave soon. He even worried about whether he might develop leukemia one day. Doctors performed a bone marrow biopsy, expecting severe damage. What they found was far worse. Aochi's chromosomes, the structures that carry DNA and allow cells to replicate and repair, were shattered. Some were fused together. Others were broken into fragments. The normal architecture of life was gone. His body had lost the ability to regenerate itself. Without that process, survival is mathematically impossible. From that moment on, the medical team knew this was not a question of recovery but of time. Within days, Aochi's white blood cell count dropped to 0. His immune system effectively ceased to exist. A handshake, a breath of air, a speck of dust could now kill him. He was placed in a sterile isolation room, sealed off from the world like a fragile artifact. Every interaction became a calculated risk, and yet the doctors weren't ready to give up. There was one experimental option: a hematopoietic stem cell transplant. The idea was radical. Inject healthy donor stem cells into Aochi's body, allowing them to rebuild his bone marrow and restore blood cell production. It had never been attempted in a radiation case this extreme. But there was a match: his sister. With her consent, the transplant went forward. Doctors were cautious but hopeful. For a brief moment, it seemed to work. Tests showed his sister's stem cells circulating through his body. His white blood cell count rose back to normal levels. It looked like a miracle, but radiation doesn't just destroy, it lingers. The residual damage inside Ouchie's body corrupted the transplanted cells, undoing the progress. His condition began to unravel again, faster this time. His skin lost cohesion, peeling away with the removal of medical tape. Adhesives could no longer be used. Fluid began to accumulate in his lungs, making breathing harder with each passing day. His strength faded. Still, he expressed love for his wife and family who refused to leave his side. Even as machines took over more of his basic functions, Ouchie remained aware, trapped inside a body that was systematically failing. And this was still not the worst part. Doctors soon discovered why the apparent recovery had collapsed. An endoscopy revealed that the protective lining of Ouchie's intestines had died and was sloughing off. Without it, the body cannot absorb nutrients, water, or electrolytes. Eating became pointless. Drinking became dangerous. From that moment on, Ouchie's fate narrowed to two outcomes: starvation or dehydration. But radiation had more to take. The residual damage inside his body continued to corrupt any healthy cells that entered it, including the transplanted stem cells. His immune system collapsed again, completely. Severe intestinal failure followed. Ouchie began losing nearly 3 liters of fluid a day through uncontrollable diarrhea. Internal bleeding worsened as his tissues broke down. Doctors were forced to administer up to 10 blood transfusions per day just to keep him alive. To manage the pain, he was placed on a continuous fentanyl drip. His skin blistered and peeled until his body could no longer retain fluids at all. At one point, nurses reported that he could no longer open or close his eyes. As his condition became critical, doctors attempted skin grafts, but his body could no longer accept them. Exhausted and in constant pain, Ouchie repeatedly asked to go home. After weeks of decline, he was placed in a medically induced coma, yet his heart continued to race until it finally failed. Doctors revived him due to the absence of a do not resuscitate order, but his brain function was minimal and his organs soon failed. Life support machines kept him alive until his family agreed to a DNR order. On December 21st, 1999, after 83 days of suffering, Hisashi Ouchi died of multiple organ failure at age 35. JCO paid billions of yen in compensation, lost its licenses, and shut down.